Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Jennifer Kirk.
And I'm Dave Lees, and welcome to This and That.
Well, earlier this week, Phil Hirsch, a journalist for the Chicago Tribune, he tweeted that Evan Lysacek will likely be competing at the Senior B International this September in Salt Lake City. It's the U.S. International Figure Skating Classic. This will be his first competition back. Kind of a surprise because I don't think many of us, very few of us, thought that he would do this event. What are your thoughts about him possibly competing there, Dave?
Well, he needs to do more than one competition before he goes to nationals. We've seen these skaters and, gymnasts come back and they're a little bit rusty. And I think it's, more of a mental thing. I think if Evan's going to compete, he needs to do more than one event, get his rhythm back, get his timing back, and just get out there. I think it's ultimately good, and it makes his comeback seem a little bit more serious because there are a lot of people who have a lot of doubts that he'll show up and actually skate.
Yeah, I think in the past, we had like the Campbell's Classic, a lot of these programs that just aren't there anymore. But we saw at this event last season, Max Aaron competed there. Some of the women were pretty good in the U.S. as well. What happens if someone like Max skates there? Do you think this is wise for Evan to be at a competition so early in the season? If he doesn't skate that well, what does that portend?
Well, I don't think that you can go into an event scared. And if you're scared, as Frank said, you probably shouldn't come back. So if Evan's going to come back and go to the Olympics, he can handle having a tough competitor at a Senior B. He's going to have to deal with a lot of pressure later on. It's probably better to have a reality check now. He could always get injured after that Senior B international event and be on TV at nationals commentating or something. But I think that he needs to get out there and he needs a reality check. I don't think you want to have a situation like Sasha Cohen did in 2010 when your first long program to Moonlight Sonata looks like you haven't done it before, and that it becomes an epic disaster and I'm sure very embarrassing.
Yeah, and you can't, nothing you do in training just as an athlete can emulate what it feels like when you're actually out there under competition lights. And of all the internationals early in the season that he could do, it's in Salt Lake City, and that's an hour and a half from LA, so it's not too bad here in the US. I think it's smart. I don't think he's going to do it, though. I can't picture him at this event.
Do you think he will really come back if it becomes clear in training, say, late July, early August? I mean, we know that he's at the rink. We have a Frank Carroll source, and Evan is at the rink, but the quads are likely not in the program yet. I mean, do you think that if it becomes clear, Evan's not stupid, and there's one thing about him is that he seems to know what he needs to do. If he cannot do those quads, I don't think he can be competitive. Do you think that he will show up and risk not making an Olympic team?
I think if he's not doing the quad consistently before Skate America, he won't be there. And I think, though, if he doesn't go to Skate America, we won't see him at Nationals. I really think it all hinges on whether or not he shows up for Skate America. In my gut, I think Evan has what it takes to go all the way. I think his body is the biggest variable that's going to get in his way. I think back to Nastia Liukin a couple years ago coming back in gymnastics. She has a similar competitive mentality that I see with Evan, where I think mentally they both were back and were strong, but it just didn't seem like her body was able to give her what she needed. And I think that may be what, if something stands in his way, it would be his body.
Yeah, I think the one thing about Nastia is that she was really out of the gym for quite some time. Evan has still been skating and kept at that level. It'll be easier for his body to transition back from show shape to elite shape. He's been training, but that body has a lot of wear and tear on it. Quads are not easy. If he doesn't, I think that if he's going to do Skate America, he should do the Senior B. But again, I have doubts if we'll see him in September competing.
Well, we definitely will be seeing him in commercials and advertisers at the Sochi Games, whether or not he's there. It was announced this week as well that he and Michelle Kwan will be joining two other athletes for the Coca-Cola 4-pack. They will be performing the role of ambassadors of healthy living for Coca-Cola, which kind of seems like an oxymoron. For many of us, when you think of Coke, you don't necessarily think of healthy living, which is why I'm sure they wanted these athletes to be promoting their products. I understand as an athlete, you need to get endorsements. Obviously, Coke is a very well-known product. It makes products, or a company, it makes products other than just, soda with a high fructose corn syrup. What are your thoughts about, and Michelle Kwan coming back too and doing these endorsements? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think everyone wants Michelle in their ads at the Olympics. Obviously, skaters are in it for image and it's a business as well as it's a sport, and endorsements are a big part of that. Coke offers a lot of money. However, this is really hysterical in many ways because of who is on there. Evan is talking about his protein shakes and his diet constantly. And everyone who's toured with Michelle Kwan said that she had the world's best diet because she knew that she did not have the world's best metabolism like her sister. So she had to eat really cleanly. Yes. I don't think Michelle's had a Coke in a long time.
I don't think she's ever had a Coke.
But I think they always do this. You always see gymnasts on the cover of McDonald's and Coke, and it's such a joke compared to that. Shawn Johnson will be at, on Coke endorsements she's done. She, has done tons of fast food, ice cream, and people kind of made fun of Shawn for that a little bit because it seemed disingenuous, but she also wasn't as gifted as some of her competitors metabolism-wise, and, it was harder for her. And, you're 16, you're going to the Olympics, you're certainly not going to eat a Coke when you need to stay prepubescent to compete against the Chinese girls. So it's just...
But I mean, on the other hand, you can't blame the athlete because especially in today's world with the skating, you got to get whatever. That's basically where an athlete's income is going to come from. But it does, I think, as a viewer, I remember with Patrick Chan, he had endorsement from McDonald's. And I think we saw in a fluff piece going through the drive-thru, ordering like a Big Mac or something. And you have to think, do the athletes actually eat that? I mean, is it good or bad for these companies and the sports? I think it is the question as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really get the logic there. I know that they want to be a part of the Olympics and be a part of that hype, but it's always a bit funny to me. But I think that there are tons of people who watch the endorsements and never have a second thought about, wait a second, are they really eating this? I think that's more if you delve into it.
And I think it's great that we're going to see Michelle Kwan back. It's kind of funny, though, that they wouldn't choose somebody like an Ashley Wagner or Gracie Gold, who both have endorsements with Nike. Regardless, Michelle's always going to be that face of skating. What do you think about them choosing her?
Would you rather choose Michelle or would you rather choose Ashley Wagner, who might be 5th or 6th at the Olympics? It's Michelle. I think if I was looking at endorsements, I would think of Michelle. I would look at Christy Yamaguchi. I'm not, these ladies in the U.S., they're nice. They're nice to watch. We'll root for them during the Olympics, but they don't have that star power. So it really is not even... and obviously Michelle and Evan have the same agent, and he will likely be taking a nice vacation this year after a very... good
lucrative winter month. Yeah, in the last couple weeks, we've also been talking about Johnny Weir, and Johnny has kind of a side project where he writes articles for the Falls Church News Press, a Virginia-based newspaper. And
very lucrative endorsement, I'm sure.
I know, ready for op-eds for a newspaper versus Coca-Cola. I don't know which one, but he wrote a recent article called "The Impossible Dream," and reading between the lines, when I walked away from it, it almost seemed like he was telling us he's done. What did you get from the piece?
It's Johnny. People will love it because it's him, but at the same point, he has so many different faces where he tries to go deep or he tries to be cheeky on TV, and I'm left just kind of shrugging. I don't think that Johnny will compete. I'm more wondering, how is he going to handle this Olympic season? Because I don't expect him to be out in competition, but this is kind of his last chance to really get those endorsements or to get a lot of attention. And to do that, he would really have to pretend to be making a comeback, at least through the fall months. He doesn't have a Grand Prix assignment. I'm just not sure where Johnny's head is at. What's the strategy? Skating's not on TV a lot, so he can't really commentate until the Olympics. I do think that NBC should have him on. I think that being a commentator at the Olympics and Nationals would probably be the best thing for Johnny and for NBC. I think he could help their broadcast. I just don't get what we're going to see in Johnny in the coming months. Is he going to fake a big comeback? Is he going to disappear, because I don't think Johnny likes to be out of the limelight, especially when the limelight is shifting back onto the sport.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely see him doing some appearances or whatnot, even if he's not competing. But some of the quotes from this, I just want to read. He says, you have to wonder, talking about people who think that they're good at something, or maybe they haven't really taken that time to assess whether or not this is the path for them. He says, you have to wonder if they've ever flipped the mirror on themselves and really believed they were good or were just too stubborn to quit. And I thought that was a little suspect. Later, he says, it takes a strong individual to see that despite imagining and dreaming about their own success and being supported by a loving friend or family member, that you just might not have it in you.
I thought that was interesting. I kept waiting for the end and kind of the point of the article. I kept waiting for him to kind of say, I've realized that I can no longer be competitive with the top men and that I enjoy, because I think we saw that. When Johnny finished competing at the last Olympics, I thought it was pretty clear that he could no longer really contend for... He did his absolute best at the Olympics, and you can argue about his placement, but the judges sent him a message that he was no longer a true contender. And I was shocked when he announced his comeback, especially when he showed up at events last year. Again, like usual, he looked like he could jump in training, but it just didn't translate over. I'm confused by the article, honestly. I'm
confused by him, honestly. I mean, I don't think we'll even know until it's time. My gut tells me he's not going to be competing this season, but he's just one of those personalities that no matter what he does, he's interesting to follow, just because I think he's an interesting person. But you talk about the last Olympics and you think of ending on such a high note. Why go back and put yourself through it again, where I don't see him doing as well in terms of placement or performance than we saw 4 years ago?
I'm confused by him. Why go to the Olympics, train so hard, actually have two of the best performances that you've given in years, but badmouth the top U.S. judge, weeks before the Olympics, and that judge, didn't give him a good score at nationals and transitions, I believe. I don't know with Johnny. I don't know what we're going to see. I think we'll have him in the spotlight. He'll find a way to make people talk about him, because there's going to be a lot of articles about Evan if this comeback is legitimate. And I don't think Johnny's going to sit by and let someone else get all the attention, all the TV appearances. His career is really as a media figure. We see him on cable news a lot, not cable news, but cable shows, Fashion Police, or, whatever he's doing on the Food Network. And I don't think that I think he has to figure out what his angle is for this Olympic season. Well, one of the interesting things that I wanted to talk to you about was that there's an interview with Karen Kadavy this week on the Manly Women's Skatecast. And one of the most interesting things is that she talked about her relationship training with Carlo Fassi and Jill Trenery. And I think it's pretty known that Jill and Karen weren't besties in the rink. But what I took from that is that Carlo put them together for a reason. Karen had never made it to nationals before she trained with Carlo and with Jill. And I think that that's why she wound up doing so well, is that she had someone pushing her. And I found it interesting is that Karen didn't seem to be getting why this all worked out for her, why she finally put it together, because, everyone always says, oh, Carlo put the total package together, but they never, he's probably not the best technician. He's a great figures coach, but he was a great marketer. I felt a little confused when she said that she wanted a coach all to herself, because in my mind, I think she did well because she had someone push her. What's your thoughts on that? Yeah,
we just interviewed Naomi Nerniam, and she talked about skating with Sasha and how Mr. Nix would kind of pit them against each other a bit. He had that split screen, which he talks about, fortunately, the worst day of her life. I think as an athlete, someone like her, there are different breeds, different personalities. I think there are certain people who like that kind of constant competition every day in practice, but I can see with other people that would get a little bit old. I think most of our minds probably go to the dance camp, the Zueva dance camp, and the two top teams there. Do you think that it is smart for these skaters to skate every day with the top competitor? Do you think that helps them to become better skaters in the long run?
I think it does, and I think that Naomi realized that.
Yeah.
I think that where it changes is when you're competing for a world title, which Jill and Karen weren't at that stage with each other. They were both trying to get on the podium, and they were both fairly inconsistent. So I think they really needed each other at that point. I think that Marina Zueva's teams, with Marilyn, Charlie, and Tessa and Scott have almost become super teams, and they've pushed each other to this unreal level. But at this point, I think that they probably should have split up. I go back to, if you were Tessa Virtue, you're competing every day against Meryl Davis. Meryl's dating your coach's son. Do you think Marina's going to be giving you more attention this year? Because with Marina's ego, I don't think she's going to want to, wake up on Christmas morning and be sitting across with a silver medalist, where she couldn't get the job done. So
yeah, I think as professional as Marina Zueva may be, we're all human, and I think there's that desire, not saying that she's doing it, but to kind of, you're going to like favorites at some point. And if someone's dating your son, I'm just saying, if I was Tessa Virtue, I would try to kind of get in that. You have to do something.
Girls date Fedor. Is this about love? Does he think that they love him? Because do you notice whoever is dating Fedor, when Tanith was with him, she was the top Marina team. Then Tessa started dating, and Tanith got pushed out of Canton, Michigan, and went to train with Lysacek. Now Meryl is dating Fedor. She became world champion twice.
Right?
You have to wonder about that dynamic. I mean, is this a big showmance, or is these feelings real?
I think Meryl is very smart. She is not, no matter what goes on in that relationship with Fedor over the next 9 months
but his reputation? I mean, come on.
But she's going to stay in that relationship through the Olympics, and I would
Meryl's not stupid. She might be. Everyone is like, oh, poor Meryl. She's dating such a player. I think Meryl's the smart one.
Let's hope she's playing him.
I think she's playing him. So,
but you got to think though, someone like Fedor, and I skated with him. We have a good friendship, and he's been a very, very good friend throughout the years. But anytime those kind of thoughts popped into my head of dating him, I thought, ooh, you got to look at his track record, and you have to think. And I can only imagine what that dynamic must be like, just skating every day for Meryl and Tessa. Not only do you share a coach, but you've shared a guy, and now it's very suspect. Not suspect, but I think it's odd. I would almost say that one of the teams hasn't left at this point, just because I can't imagine what that dynamic is like and the pressure that those teams feel every day going up against each other.
I think it's interesting I want to know how Marina manipulated it to get those teams away from Igor when he seems to be the strong technician. I mean, she's giving the pretty arm, but you have to wonder, why are they both staying with her? Do they feel like they couldn't go back to Igor at this point? Maybe they don't have any other options, but I don't know. Tessa and Scott, they're a phenomenal team, but it seems like there are some cards stacked against them, but they do have talent. If they could really turn it on this season, they might not need any extra help. They could probably...
that Fedor, if he's like the special thing that's going to get you that Olympic or world gold medal.
Yeah, you'll get the better free dance. Well, we'll talk about relationships. And one of the interesting things is that Vladimir Putin announced that he's getting a divorce this week. And he was he was rumored, allegedly been reported in the press for some time to be having an affair with Russian Olympic champion in rhythmic gymnastics, Alina Kabaeva. And she was always full of drama. She was at every doping scandal. She was a part of it. Anytime judges were suspected of cheating, she was the beneficiary. So it's the wonderful world that we live in. It seems just like skating. I kind of love it. And also in the Russians, it's interesting is that they got rid of their coach from the Olympics. And there are kind of two dueling personalities. There's the head of the federation, Andrei Rodionenko, who was the head of Canada. They never had much success with him. But there was Alexander Alexandrov was coaching the Olympic team, and he coached Aldia Mustafina to a gold medal on the uneven bars. And they got the gymnasts to almost kick him out by saying that he gave her too much attention at their expense. The team looked better than it has looked in a decade. They finally were contenders again. And my question for you is, do you think it's easy to manipulate athletes to say what you want to say when their careers are on the line? They need to be chosen for assignments and for teams.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I mean, because people will point and say that these gymnasts, well, they said he was, giving her too much attention. My mind goes to, they'll say whatever they want that they're on that European team next year.
And federations, everybody. I mean, I think that's why so many skaters may struggle when they leave the sport, because you're like, I can say what I want. Like, I have a voice. Because particularly if you, I mean, I think it's like any controlling relationship. If you take a child from a young age and you kind of groom them and you put certain thoughts or you tell them, and we are told, gymnasts and skaters at a young age, how to handle yourself in a press conference, what you are or not supposed to say. And you're always looking to a coach or a federation. So totally, I think, of course, gymnasts, skaters, we're going to say what we're told to say. No surprise there. Well, as we wrap up this week's This and That, it was announced last Monday that 2016 World Championships will be headed to Boston. Great to have competition here in the U.S. So as always, leave us a comment, leave us any feedback, anything that you found interesting from this week's news in both skating and gymnastics. We would love to hear your opinions and your thoughts.
Yes, and as always, we'd like to remind you to hold an edge
and look sexy.
Bye, guys.